Hey everybody, it's Caitlin. Today is Thursday, April 2nd, in case you're anything like me and having a hard time keeping track of the days now that we don't have our normal work week structure. And so thank you all for posting your comments and your questions. I've been getting a number of questions about this idea of peak. What is it? When's it going to happen? And relatedly, when are we all going to be able to kind of go back to normal, go back to work? And so these ideas are kind of related, so I thought we could talk about them together. This idea of peak has to do with something that maybe you've been seeing in the news, something that looks sort of like this, where you've got kind of time across the bottom and cases across the top, and you've got this curve, right? And there's a lot of speculation about where we are on this curve based on how many cases we're seeing and how fast we're seeing people get sick. And the idea is that with this curve, at some point, you're going to kind of hit the most people who are going to be sick, and then we'll start to see a decline in people getting sick and in the number of deaths. The thing that's a little tricky is we don't know exactly when that's going to happen. There's a lot of guessing. You're probably seeing a lot of people on the news making claims about when they think that's going to be. The truth is, none of us know. With the other thing that's a little bit confusing about this is that we normally think about a graph like this in terms of the absolute number of cases. How many people are sick? How many people are dying? But a lot of the graphs that you're seeing flying around the internet actually have something slightly different on the side here, which is about how fast is the number of cases doubling. That's what epidemiologists and people who are tracking this and trying to figure out when we're getting to the peak are really caring about, because when we can start to see the rate at which the cases increase start to slow down, that means that we're starting to hit this curve. Now, remember way back, high school math, maybe college math, calculus, right? That's what we're talking about with this rate of change. And so what's a little funky here is that even as the rate of change starts to slow and turn, right, the speed at which the number of total cases doubles, as we start to see that slow down, that's when we're going to talk about hitting peak. We still may see lots and lots more cases after peak happens. And so it's going to be a little confusing with all of the people talking about, have we hit peak, have we not hit peak, to figure out exactly where that's going on. When this curve happens, also is influenced by what we all do to stay home, right? And so if you're hearing people talking about flattening the curve, maybe you're seeing a graph that looks kind of like this, with that big scary curve at the top and then this lower one down at the bottom. The deal with this is that we've got fewer people getting sick all at the same time, right? That's what we're all doing by trying to stay home, not interact with each other, wash our hands, stay at least 6 feet apart, is making sure that the number of people getting sick isn't all happening at the same time. Because if we all get sick at the same time, and we all need to go to the hospital at the same time, there just may not be enough people to take care of us. But if we can flatten this curve, right, and spread out when we're getting sick, there's a better chance that we'll have enough resources to go around. And also maybe that we'll come up with a vaccine or an effective treatment somewhere in the process. So you want to get sick later on because the chances that we've got good care for you is better. But the thing with flattening this curve, right, means that peak will happen later. And so in terms of, when can we all go back to normal? When is this thing going to be over? A lot of that depends on when we hit that peak, and how flat the peak is, because how stretched out this whole thing is. What I'm seeing from experts right now is that, even though there's a lot of people in the news saying that they know when peak's going to happen, that it'll happen by Easter, that it'll happen by the end of April, that we'll all be back to work in May. In terms of the science of this thing, we just don't know when peak's going to happen. It may be that peak happens in April, as some models are saying. It may be that it happens later. And as I'm saying that really thinking about the U.S., but peak will kind of happen at different times in different places. Even here in the U.S., we're expecting that peak will probably happen in different states at different times, just in terms of when the epidemic really got going, what different measures are in place to try to slow it down. So states that did things like stay at home earlier in their increase in the number of cases are slowing that whole thing down, and they'll probably hit peak later than states that, either had a number of people get sick before they realized kind of what was going on, or who were slower to make a move. So I hope that helps explain a little bit this concept of peak. If you've got more questions about it, just drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to respond. Thanks, everybody.